Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Mythilosophy podcast. I hope you enjoyed episode 6 with Ed. He's just got a beautiful, beautiful mind, and he's a lovely human being. So, thank you very much for agreeing to do it if you're watching this. And also, I suppose I should make a big shout out and say thank you for helping me with all this technical. He's been helping me quite a lot with this technical stuff and allowing me to know which is the right thing to buy for the podcast trip to reduce weight and what's the most powerful. So I appreciate your time in answering my messages. Much appreciated, mate. This is episode 7. I suppose you might say it's a first for the podcast because I'm interviewing or chatting with 2 people, which is really cool. Rhys and Arielle. I met Rhys, I think about 8 years ago in Vietnam while I was travelling, and we've remained friends ever since. We've met each other around the world in various places, and he very kindly came down to Frome to stay for a few days with his lovely partner Arielle. We went on lovely walks and had good chats, and then we managed to sneak in a cheeky little podcast. I was watching it back, and I just kept thinking that they're just immensely witty and immensely funny, and they just know their stuff in their field. Rhys is a kind of creative person, on sets doing various films regarding various things, including film, camera. Work. We talk about that. And Arielle is in her own right a poet, and she's done some amazing things, which you'll come to see throughout the chat. So we talk loosely around those kind of topics. I went this week cycling in London, and it was really quiet and really lovely. So I don't know if you. If you're in London, or if you're on a bike, or if you're at any major city around the world, just get out and experience it, not in its full madness, because it had a very European, a very beautiful feel to it. So that was something that I noticed this week. And I also watched a couple of a documentary called Crip Camp, which is on Netflix. Which I won't kind of spoil the thing for you, but there was basically just a bunch of disabled people back in the 60s that set up this camp. And in America, and they just went on to fight for disabled people's rights, and it was all what they basically learned at this kind of disabled camp they went for the summer, run by a bunch of hippies, all good people. That was an amazing documentary, and I could highly recommend watching it on Netflix. So that's Crip Camp. And I suppose this podcast, it's a kind of mixture of myth and philosophy. That's the kind of mix of the names, and I've had a couple of people get quite hooked on the whole philosophy thing and the fact that it's in there. So I was having a meal this week, that very same day that I was cycling in London, and I was having a meal with my old sociology teacher from school, who actually has a philosophy degree, and he said something really interesting. And I'll throw this question to you so you can ponder it. But when you wish someone lots of love, does that dilute or take away from actual love? So when you wish someone lots of love, does it actually dilute or completely go away from the essence of what love is? So have a little think, ponder on that, and see what you think. I'd be interested to hear your views on that, because we had a long discussion about that. Enjoy the podcast. Thank you very much. All good.
Okay.
Rocking and rolling. Ready.
How are my... Oh, my levels are fine. Grand.
Yeah, they
Alright.
sound good. I think I've worked out if there's something about this thing. If this goes red, that means like
Peaking. Yep. That's when you get the distortion.
Ah.
Yes.
I'm learning about these technical things. They're not, I'm just it's very early days.
They're not very intuitive.
No.
You want to leave it about 20% below when it goes red.
Uh-huh.
It's called headroom.
Ooh.
Just in case I get louder. Awesome.
There's enough headroom there. I saw
Yeah,
that.
excellent. That's good. There was this sound engineer that I learnt from that used to use Black Dog.
Okay.
You know, they're like, "Hey, mom, I see the way you move." For all of the artists that were sound checking, because you just can't say it. You have to kind of like put something behind it.
Okay.
And check his levels from that.
Okay. And this is known from your. Oh Jesus! Careful of that. This is known because you are a creative sort, aren't you?
Yeah.
One of those creative beans. What
Yeah.
do you do in the creative world?
Well, I'm kind of more unsorted. I'm
Unsalted or unsorted?
definitely unsorted. I do sound and vision mostly, so audio engineering, as well as photography, videography, and writing for these. Writing music, writing TV, ads, commercials, those kind of things.
What do you most enjoy? Which avenue of expression is your preferred?
I think at the moment it's definitely changed in stages throughout my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm very quiet. I can talk up though, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's changed throughout my life, but at the moment I'm really loving being on set.
Mm.
Just being part of a big team, painting a picture together is pretty wild. Keeps you on your toes.
Mm. What is that like being on set and being amongst creative people? Because it's just something that I've never done, so I'm just intrigued as to what it's like being
It's mayhem. But I think it's a real pressure cooker for personalities. You can really get a good sense of someone very early into a shoot of how they handle stress, because everything will go
okay.
wrong,
Mm.
and you all have to react to that. So I can't remember the author, but someone famously said it's like painting a picture with an army, and that's pretty close to how it feels on set. Is you've got so many delineated roles and positions, but you're all trying to make one picture happen. So the director's pretty much just working with the actors, and then the DOP is focusing on getting the right shots.
What's the DOP?
Director of photography.
Fabulous.
So the kind of like cinematography of it is normally the work of the DOP and the director, but like on the day the DOP will handle most of that with their gaffer, which is the person that's responsible for lighting, because without lights you don't have a picture.
The gaffer.
The gaffer.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about football being manager, but gaffer actually means
really?
lighting. Well, it's like slang term in.
Oh,
in the UK.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny because gaff in Irish slang is slang for house. So
Yeah. Right.
but you can have a house without light though.
You can. Every Earth Day.
Every Earth Day. Interesting. Okay. So the gaffer is a main kind of part of the production.
Yeah, it's just it's a shame that it's kind of such. I think from a point of view of someone outside of the industry, the word does not inspire the kind of level of work that is required of that person. Like I would hear gaffer, and I just imagine a boy of 16 with a roll of gaffer tape, and their job's just to like tape that down, tape this down. And so I was very surprised when I was on set. I was like, oh, okay, this person
actually has an important job.
A very big role. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Okay. And what about, and you are a poet, spoken word artist?
Yeah.
How would you describe?
I don't know if there's really like one good word for it. Like people like to say, "Oh, you're a slam poet." I'm like, I don't really perform in slams that much anymore. Because a slam is just a competition of poetry, or even just comedians can show up. Like it's just kind of dominated by poets at the moment. And it was started by poets, but it's just like competition where poets show up, get judged by 5 random audience members. To sort of make it a level playing field. It's like very democratic, very anti-academia.
Interesting.
It's very well. I mean, because the guy who started it, he was a construction worker who got tired of showing up to open mics where people would just waffle on for 10 to 15 minutes. And by the time everyone who had to go on after them there was no audience left for them. So he was like, okay, we have to make the audience engaged and like make it worth them sticking around, limit them to 3 minutes with a 10-second grace period, let them have at it. And then it just sort of ballooned into this very global thing. But yeah, so I would say no such thing as a slam poet, but you know, some people would disagree with that.
When you go into these like a slam poetic event, do you already know what you're going to say, or does it come to you on stage, or?
Depends on the person.
Okay.
I am really, really bad at coming up with stuff on the spot. But I'm really good at rearranging words on paper and then okay at memorizing them.
Okay.
And you don't have to be memorized because people will bring up their phones or a piece of paper or whatever. But yeah.
Is that what you do though? You memorize the poem in your head and then.
Yeah, generally it tends to be a lot more fun because the way I do it, I studied theater as well, and like I grew up with, I wouldn't say a background in dance because I didn't really study it ever, but my family are all from the Caribbean. That was how we interacted at holiday parties or just at parties in general. Like Rhys got a very small taste of it over Christmas and New Year's. But yeah, so I was always very comfortable using my body to express myself. And then I tried singing, wasn't good at that.
Yeah.
Tried acting, wasn't great at that either. Got a whole degree in it, still wasn't good at it. Tried dancing, couldn't really learn choreography that well. Good at freestyling though. Good at figuring out my own sort of choreography, but learning other people's not so great. And then I just sort of accidentally stumbled into poetry, and I was like, oh, so I can be on stage writing my own stuff, reading my own stuff, dancing my own stuff. This is great. And so, yeah, so I just kind of blended everything into one really fun job.
It's also quite nice to hear that like by the sounds of it, you've kind of stumbled and fallen at quite like with the dancing. You stumbled, you like no, it can't be that. Yeah, fell over a bit and then you get back up again. It's quite nice to hear hear of like a person who's like just stumbling and falling, but has actually along the way found their kind of their passion or their thing. Because
I was always really interested in performing of some kind. And I just kind of like kept trying things. I was like, that's not quite it. I'll try this. Oh, no, not quite it either. But like the great thing about humanity is we're really good at holding on to little pieces of things, even if we like drop the rest of it. So like I've got a whole 4 years of like understanding like play structure and analysis for theatrical productions. Only thing I really took away from it was like, creating multiple like emotional like peaks and valleys in a single piece of writing is good.
Right.
Like, and so like even if you try something and it doesn't really work out the way you wanted it to, like you still pick up little things on the way. like have a great understanding of lighting and sound, because since I wasn't acting, they would just kind of shoved me every other place that they could put me.
It sounds like you're your own kind of like mini sort of maestro, your own mini like orchestra person who's like, thinking about, that'd be quite nice there. That'd be.
Yeah. I was much less elegant than that. It was much more of a like, I like this thing. I like this thing too. I'll smush them together real quick, and it's kind of cool. Yeah.
It's very. It's a. Well, from the sounds of it, it's a very courageous thing to do. To have gone and done that and been like, oh shit, I can't really do that. So, well, I can do a little bit of that, and then I'll go and pop that over there, and then I'll go and it's a nice formula.
I can fake sing really good. I can't actually. I can fake sing. I can't actually sing. I can't sing.
She recently in Cork last week brought the house down with her singing Jolene at a Dolly Parton birthday party. So she really, she's selling herself short. She can definitely sing.
And speaking of Dolly Parton, do you want to talk about your love for Dolly Parton, Rhys? That I found out over this past 2 or 3 days.
Some loves last an eternity, and some a brief bright spark. And I never heard Dolly Parton apart from Jolene. And then caught a bus with a bunch of Irish poets and Arielle down to Cork for a Dolly Parton birthday party. And then before the Dolly Parton birthday party, we listened to a lot of Dolly Parton videos. And then there was a whole night of Dolly Parton and performances. And then afterwards, we listened to some more Dolly Parton. And then the next day, we watched a documentary on Dolly Parton and a bit of a movie with Dolly Parton in it.
You've had a real Dolly Parton-a-thon, haven't you?
And sadly, I think we've broken up since then. So but I'll always remember our time together.
That's what he thinks. I'm from Texas. Dolly Parton never dies.
Although you told me some really interesting stuff about Dolly Parton and about how kind of what was the thing you told me about her buying the.
I'll hand this back to you.
Unless you'd like to.
No, I don't know what he's talking about.
So, in 1967, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
Dolly Parton was signed onto the Porter Wagoner show, which was the #1 syndicated television show in the U.S. It was a country music show. Porter Wagoner himself was quite an established country music artist, and he was like the king. And so and a lot of these, there were a lot of these style shows, but he was like the best one. And it was tradition for them to have a girl singer, and their original girl singer left, and so Porter Wagoner approached Dolly Parton, who was, I believe, 21 at the time. Wow. And asked her to be the new girl singer, and she was great. People didn't like her at first because she had a very high voice, but then it became like her signature, and she blew completely up. Became incredibly famous and well-liked, and people started liking Dolly Parton as an artist more so than they liked her being on the show. And so she, the way she tells it, wanted to leave the show and move on and get a new manager and start doing tours on her own as a singular artist, and like having more creative control over the kind of things she was recording and the kind of things she was touring. And Porter Wagoner was not having it. So she wrote the song "I Will Always Love You," which is, the big famous one. Whitney Houston covered that one famously. And she stormed into his office, sat down, played it for him, and he was like, "All right, you can go." And she was like, "Sweet." And so she left the show and continued to, her solo career continued to blossom and spread. And Porter Wagoner was still a bit salty about the whole thing. So he sued her for $1 million and he wanted everything, like 15% of everything she had done in the past, everything she had right now, and 15% of her royalties for the future. And she was like, "That is dumb." So she settled out of court. Took her years to pay him back, but eventually she did. And that was that in Dolly Parton's head. So years go by. Porter Wagoner owes the IRS about $500,000, which is no small amount of money. And Dolly Parton, being the absolute class act she is, decides to buy his production company for him so that he can pay off his debts and be okay. And then, after a while, she just gave it back to him.
What a lady.
Like,
holy shit.
Oh, she's incredible.
And then you told me that there's some
the Imagination Library. Yeah. So she grew up in like the mountains, like the like backwoods, no one goes there, Appalachia mountains, where there's, I think, the lowest literacy in the entire country, lowest literacy rates in the country. And so she donates books to children to help with the literacy rates.
She was one of 7, right?
She was like one of 12.
One of 12.
Yeah. So the fact that she learned to read living in a like basically one-room mountain house in the middle of nowhere is amazing. And so she's like, you know what? Everybody else deserves that as well. So
spread that gift, spread that joy. It's just so like nicely reaffirming or reassuring that somebody with that status and that like legendary cult, thing, just that, the top of the top basically can actually be so grounded and so like beautiful and humble and just giving back into where she came from and the situation.
Just a genuinely good person, really.
Yeah. All hail Dolly.
All hail Dolly.
All hail Dolly.
All hail Dolly.
How was Ireland?
Right.
How was Ireland? Because you've just recently both come from Houston, Texas.
Yes.
Which is where you're originally from.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you made a stop in Ireland.
Dublin. Yeah. So fun fact for anyone who's trying to travel across the Atlantic Ocean, Dublin is one of the cheapest airports in Europe to fly into from North America.
Really?
Don't know why that is, but that's the case. And so when we were trying to find cheap flights to America so that I could see my family for Christmas and everything and bring Rhys around and so he can bond with everybody, and he did a great job.
Well done.
Found flights through Dublin. Excuse me. Found flights through Dublin, and my best friend lived in Dublin a few years ago, and so I messaged her, and she put me in touch with the lovely Lewis Kenny, who brought us to the home of Niamh and Caoimhe, who are...
By the way, do you want to just spell those names for me?
Oh, Niamh is spelled Niamh, and Caoimhe is Caoimhe.
Of course it is. Quite clearly Caoimhe. Yeah.
It's a fantastic language.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Some of the most charming accents in the entire world.
Yeah.
They're just people.
Oh, God, yes.
Everyone we met was lovely, delightful, just fun to be around.
Yeah, right.
Every single person we met in Ireland, both times we've been there, it's a rare treat.
You were saying you felt something in Ireland. You felt there was some sort of essence of something.
It just feels a bit haunted.
Yeah, okay. All those Gaelic people hanging around with their ghosts and their...
I just like, I mean, you listen to any Irish trad or ballad, and it's miserable death upon miserable death, and it's hard to not get a sense that maybe the city is holding a grudge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well,
Just
especially
in the
when
air.
the people who live in the city can point out the places that people died such miserable deaths, and you're like, oh, it's not just a song. Oh, that's real life. Oh, dear.
He was hung over here because he tried to help the people instead of the Irish, instead of the English. You know, he like.
Don't worry about the blue sky and the sunshine. Anyway, over there, Jack O'Connell was fucking shot in the head because he farted the wrong way, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of negative feelings towards the tan.
Indeed, absolutely. I told you when we went over there to play, when I was like 14, we went over to play Gaelic football.
Yeah.
So a team from London went over to play Gaelic football, and we went over to Cork, and we got a frosty reception, it's fair to say. A salty reception, you might even say. And then we actually beat them at their game 3 in a row. And it was just, you could just see, it was just, God, if they could have hung us there and then, they would have done it. You know, to go over there to their land and beat them at their game.
So what you're saying is it's fair that they don't like the English.
Absolutely. Then I'm biased though, because I'm half Irish, so, you know, kind of got both edges of the
Do you ever
guillotine.
Are you feuding within yourself?
No, happily rejoicing, because my dad has always said to me, he's like, Ryan, don't forget you're Irish. Now we've left the EU, I am remembering, all of a sudden I'm really remembering. I remember I'm Irish.
I mean, you're calling Brexit like it's done. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but hopefully, you know, someone will pick that up and just go, no, we almost left.
Yeah, almost. Sorry, yeah. There is still a chance we may not leave.
And then we gave Northern Ireland back. The dream. And Australia.
And Australia. Tell us about that lovely land, growing up in Australia and Tassie.
Beautiful, incredible place. One of the best places in the world. Never ever go there. Don't talk about it. Don't visit it.
It's like Fight Club, isn't it?
It's just one of the best, most magical places you could ever go. And people are finding out, and we've got a rental crisis.
Right.
So
Okay.
it all just smells like an.
If you're listening,
sewer.
don't tell your friends. just like, you know, keep it to yourselves. Really, that little nugget.
Yeah. So part of the reason there's a rental crisis is because a lot of people who are used to paying like Melbourne or Sydney prices for real estate, or London, to be fair, bought up a lot of very cheap housing and then turned them all into Airbnbs instead of renting them out to people who actually lived there, because they would make more money that way.
Right.
So if you go down to Tassie, if you do, don't. But if you do, try not to get an Airbnb and don't support that shit.
Yes.
The pickled frog backpackers in Hobart, I can attest to as great people.
Okay.
The rooms aren't great, but
The people are lovely.
the people are lovely, you know.
And it's just a bed, it's a mattress.
That's it.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if you remember it, because we met on the cultural,
one of the World Heritage sites.
the World Heritage sites,
Yeah.
which we turned into a booze cruise on an island. Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that as a moment in your past?
I mean, I wouldn't be if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be sitting having this conversation, would we? So
No.
I'm unashamedly not ashamed.
Good.
about it. I think.
Good.
I mean, pictures and stories would say different. And the main reason I say that is because I don't know if you remember, but one night it was a bamboo hut we were staying in.
Yes.
And there was like a mattress or a foam thing that was like,
Of course.
just plopped up along some very precarious looking bamboo places, and it was like don't sleep there. And I thought it'd be a good idea to sleep there, because that's what you do when you've had some moonshine Vietnam rum.
Yeah, that whole island was an exercise in not doing the smartest thing.
Yeah, no.
Like when they told us don't flush toilet paper down the toilet or it will flood.
Yeah.
And then the septic flooded across the floor of the bar, so we all danced on the tables.
I mean that is literally just please don't do what we say.
I keep hearing random stories that I hadn't heard about this. What?
Well, they said, ladies, which I think is unfair because toilet paper can be used. I don't need to make an equality stance on this. Basically, they said, direct quote, ladies, please don't flush toilet paper down the toilet, as the sewage can't handle it and it will flood. And there were probably like six ladies and maybe like 20 dudes. I'm saying the numbers are there if you want to try it.
The ratios might say
if you want to count it. But so somehow the toilet paper got down the toilet and the septic tanks flooded and just washed all the way across the main space, which was like just this big, long dinner table under a bamboo kind of hut, and that was just absolutely flooded.
So instead of, leaving the shit flooded area, you danced on the tables instead?
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
I mean, I think I'd still do it. It was a small island. There was accommodation or one main hangout space, and we were there for another 2 nights. So, party on.
The tables it was.
Yeah.
The tables it was.
Yeah.
Is this the same trip as the mannequins that are still there to this day?
That's actually a different trip. That was a year before in Thailand, and this is How Long Bay. Yeah, so this was a year later. I have a habit ever since I was small of just kind of picking up things that I find on the street that are interesting.
Okay.
Like just random debris of things that people have discarded, So in Thailand, I found 2 mannequins. The first mannequin was just like a female bust, so kind of neck to hip, or to high thigh, and then the second mannequin was complete, top and bottom of a small child with a cracked face, in pure white, but for some reason had blonde hair, and I hid the small full size child mannequin in the doorway of my friend's room at the hostel we were staying, and then the female bust, we got a bunch of crepe paper, and we just spent a whole day doing arts and crafts at the hostel, and we just covered it in this like very vibrant kind of purples and greens and reds of like little squares of torn crepe paper, and gifted it to the hostel, and they still have it. They put Christmas lights on it every year. Yeah, sometimes because I still follow them on Facebook. And they'll put up a photo, and I'll just like sometimes I'll just see it in the background. I'm like, I remember finding that mannequin.
Oh, speaking of remembering or looking at something and remembering your art.
Yeah,
you were saying last night about a band, a soul band.
Muscle Shoals.
The Muscle Shoals, that's it.
The Muscle Shoals recording studio house band.
Yeah, that's it.
A bunch of country boys from Alabama that played on some of the greatest records of all time, including Aretha Franklin, I think Mick Jagger, Bob Dylan, and a lot of older soul bands went and recorded at Muscle Shoals, and there's a great documentary about them because these are just like young country kids that could just play, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that some of their favorite soul bands were just played by like a 17-year-old white country boy from Alabama.
Yeah, right.
Doing these infamous kind of like bends on the guitar and like those wonderful tones that they got. Is there anything you'd like to...
I mean, especially since Alabama has a particularly heinous reputation within the states, just for being backwoods.
Like, still, as in,
well, yeah.
Well,
I mean, more the attitudes rather than the like infrastructure, but I mean that too. Yeah, like, so racist, so famously racist that MLK himself had to go down to Alabama himself in order to sort of drum up like black votes, because there was a lot of voter suppression going on at the time. People make a lot of jokes at the expense of Alabama. Like Texas, where I'm from, has believe at one point it had the 48th worst literacy rates in the nation, and the governor said maybe it was, I don't know.
It's out of 52, isn't it? Is that right?
50.
Out of 50.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it's real bad. I think it was the governor. I can't remember exactly who it was, but some Texas politician was like, well, at least we're better than Alabama. When Texas is making fun of you, it's not a great reputation to have. And yet, it produced some of the greatest session musicians in American history. So, yeah, there's that.
I think the sun's on my side today. I got a lease of life, I feel okay. Need to call around, get them all out, jump in the car and get on the way. Cause there's love and the strength in numbers. They can try, but they're never gonna run us down. Speakers loud, it's like we're on a come up. Fifth gear, but they're never gonna race us down. I'm alive on a high, blue skies, there's nothing better. Hands up, we're on a ride, hold tight, we're laughing together. Ooh, we light it up and ooh, we can't be stopped and oh, can't hear us coming. Oh, we take off and keep it running. Take a stop at the riverside, crack 'em open, pass around the light. Breathe it in and out, bring our guards down. Yeah, this is ours for the day and the night. Cause there's love and the strength in numbers. They can try, but they're never gonna run us down. Speakers loud, it's like we're on a come up. Fifth gear, but they're never gonna race us down.